Today is November 13th. It's also the first day of me completing a sketchbook in a week. This video is very much inspired by Lee's video where she does like art every day for a week, so slay. But more importantly, this video would not be happening if it weren't for Danny, or Inky Valentines, who is a wonderful friend slash follower who I think over a year ago she sent me like a bunch of stuff in the mail. Most excitingly, a handmade sketchbook. She made me a sketchbook. It's so beautiful. I love the colors. I love the pattern. She sent me a little like note to go with it. It's really cute. And it has 7 full spreads. And so when I got it, I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna do a week-long sketchbook challenge. And I was like, do you wanna do it with me? And she was like, yeah. And then I ghosted her. And then I did that again a few months later. And then I did it again. And then this time I was like, hey, it's gonna happen. I have the like week scheduled out, like it's gonna happen this time. We created a prompt list together, which I'm going to be, first of all, it matches, which I love. And I'm gonna be gluing it into the front page. So yeah, for the next week, I am going to be filling out one of these spreads every day. And I'm really excited about it. Like I said, I have the prompt list just so like I wouldn't, have to do 7 spreads every day. That's gonna be hard. So I wanted like some direction. So she came up with a few, I came up with a few, we put them together. I'm really excited about it. I have no major goals. I just haven't been having like a lot of time to do art because I've been super busy. So it'll be really nice to just like force myself to sit down and do art every day, like sketchbook work every day. I'm also not super pressed about making all the art look really good. I'm excited to do like some loose, fun, explorative type stuff. Just experiment and most importantly, have a good time. And hopefully by the end, I'll have a fun little sketchbook tour for you. So let's get started with day 1. Let's do some drawing. Let's do a sketchbook spread. Before we really get into this, I do want to say this. This is a long video, and a lot of it is probably just going to be music. I'm not 100% sure, I haven't edited yet. I'm assuming a good chunk of this is going to be in music. I did a poll on my community tab and asked if you guys would prefer a shorter video with a voiceover going the whole time, or a longer video with lots of music to fill the dead air, and the short video did win. But it was a really close race, and I got a few comments on that post being like, please do the long one, like release the long vid. So even though the short video technically did win, people seemed more enthusiastic about the long one. And I was a bit too lazy to try to shave like 8 whole minutes off of this video. And on top of that, I think it would be nice to experiment a bit with video formats and lengths and stuff, so I'd like to see how a longer video performs for me. All that to say, this is a long video, so strap in, grab your sketchbook to draw along with me. Maybe have a podcast or a show at the ready that you can turn on during the quiet spots if you really need something to listen to. I'm definitely that kind of person, so I wouldn't blame you. But there will be some intermittent voiceovers as I give you a rundown of each day, so it won't be literally 20 minutes of just like a lo-fi beat, I promise. But despite it being a long video, I really hope you guys enjoy and stick to the end and, like it, I guess. So anyways, day 1 was the prompt favorite thing, which I made that prompt. And listen, the prompts are not like prompts, you know what I mean? This isn't Inktober. This is another situation in which I made the rules, so I can break them if I want. My goal with having the prompts was just a place to help me get started, get something down on the page. Some days I really heavily stick to the prompts, some days I don't. I think day 1 was a day that wasn't like a direct interpretation of the prompt. Obviously, at first I considered just drawing my favorite things, right? But I didn't think I could do that in a cool way, and I want this sketchbook to look cool at the end. So I decided to take it in a different direction. I used my favorite mediums, marker and gouache, and I painted my favorite subject, people, referencing the work of one of my favorite artists, Norman Rockwell. I picked out some references from my Rockwell books and had a really good time on them. I'm never patient enough for the amount of care and detail his work requires, but I do always have the time for hunting down the right colors. One of my favorite things about his work is his color palette, especially those gorgeous reds. The cheeks are always very red, very corally, and the women always have nice red lipstick, the red of the girl's dress, I love it. I did have a bit of a hard time on the painting though, on the right. I love the reference that it came from, but she's pulled from a much larger piece, and so without that context, it was a little hard to get her proportions right, and she looks a little funky on her own. She doesn't quite make sense. There also really isn't a lot of detail because her back is facing us, so I was really relying on getting the shapes right, and I'm not sure I was really fully spot on with that. But either way, I do really like how the spread turned out. I love the colors, but I do wish I had done something with all that negative space. Radishes. This was Danny's prompt, and I had so much fun with it. I pulled quite a few references, thinking that I was going to combine a lot and do something a bit more simplified, stylized, but I ended up using the one reference and just copying that because I just loved the composition and colors. I used watercolor for this and had such a good time, like doing color combos and mixing colors. They're very vibrant, but I did kind of struggle with the leaves. I think it's because I've been so busy lately, and that makes me feel really rushed, and that makes me not want to spend too long on art. But lately, detail and complex images have been really hard for me. Like, my brain can't even compute them. Like, I can't see them. Like, even worse than usual. That's a normal problem for me, but like, just even worse than it always is. So the leaves, where they were all overlapping and stuff, gave me a really hard time, but I think I was able to represent them well enough. I edited out a lot of them and just kept it super simple, which obviously really helped my brain, and I actually do think it helped the composition. I think it looks a little cuter that way, but overall, I would love it if my brain could start working properly again. I honestly don't have too much to say about day 2. You know, I painted some radishes. It was fun, it was simple, I really liked the way it turned out. I do think it's a good example of how uncreative I am though. Like, beyond the fact that I just Googled radishes and then just copied a photo, like, beyond that, I am just so bad at, like, coming up with ideas. Like, at the end, I pulled out the colored pencil to add detail and define stuff and whatever, and I was trying to find a way to kind of elevate the painting, make it a little cute, a little quirky, make it pop off the page a bit better, and the best I could do was add a bit of a drop shadow in some places. Like, even now, I have no idea what I could have done, but I wish I was better at that kind of thing, of coming up with clever ways to represent objects and tell stories without having to be so on the nose all the time. So egg was my prompt, and I was so excited to come up with this prompt. Like, I was so excited to put it on the list. I have been on such an egg craze lately, both in my diet and in art. Boiled and fried eggs make up about a third of my diet, and just eggs are so fun and easy to draw, like, in general. Literally add a fried egg on top of any meal, and it instantly tastes and looks 1,000 times better. Add a fried egg to any drawing, it also looks 1,000 times better. I would probably be happy drawing ramen bowls with eggs on top every day for the rest of my life. So when I was coming up with the prompts, I was like, oh, you know what? Eggs. Eggs. Give myself an easy one, you know? And yet this day, I definitely strayed from the prompt, like, more than I think most other days. I was so excited for it, and I ended up saying, you know what? Let me not do that, actually. But I'm glad I did, because this is one of my favorite spreads. It's a little awkward, a little ugly, but I think it's cute. Throughout this sketchbook, I was trying to avoid mainly markers, but also just anything that would bleed through the paper. I didn't want to work outside the sketchbook and then glue it in, because that felt like it would be defeating the purpose and also not making the most of this, like, great gift from Danny. Like, I wanted to use the paper and make the most of the sketchbook. So I had to be strategic and couldn't glue stuff in. But I also didn't want to just use gouache every day, so I was using supplies that really aren't my go-tos, and I don't exactly know how they pair with all my other supplies, you know? So like the acrylic markers, I used those, but that really didn't go the way I was expecting, so it's not as nice or neat as I wanted it to be, but I think that does add a sort of charm to this specific spread. Not the other ones, but to this specific one, I'm glad I kind of was out of my comfort zone in that sense. So I did a spam and egg ramen bowl, and while I had been searching for references for this day, I looked on Still Here Still Life's Instagram because I felt like they must have some good egg pics. And I didn't really find many good egg pics, but I did find a really cute, like, green, white polka dot tablecloth, and strawberry photo, and I really wanted to draw that. So I figured, why not? You know, why wait? I won't save it for later. I'll just do it now. Add it to the spread. It technically came from the prompt, so it kind of counts. I used my art crayons on this day too, which was really fun. I'm always looking for like a genuinely good reason to use those, a good time to use those, and I really like the effect. And overall, I really like the way this one turned out. Like I said, it's messy and scribbly, but she's cute. Okay, so it is day 4. The prompt today is gouache, 5 colors, no mixing. I made that prompt. I don't know what I was thinking. The thing is, like, the whole point of having the prompts was so that I didn't have to think so hard about what I was gonna do that day. Like, even, like, for day 3, the prompt was egg, and like I started here and like found this other reference. It's not like supposed to be about the egg, it's just supposed to give me a starting point. So the thing about the gouache prompt is that it doesn't do that. So I don't know what I was thinking, but I figured what I would do is I would like blind pick a color palette and maybe that will give me a lead. So I have the Arteza gouache here. I'm gonna dump it out and like pick them blindly. But if I don't like the colors, like I'm gonna pick again. I'm not like, it's not like a limited color palette challenge. I just don't, if I didn't give myself any sort of limitation by like picking blindly, I would sit here and I would be making combinations for hours. So like I want to make sure it's a color palette that I actually like. I just don't want to like fully have to come up with it myself. Because like I said, we would be here for a long time. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is harder than I thought. These 4. Okay, let me do one more then. No. Oh, okay. I don't know. This is actually really hard. Okay, I'm gonna go with these. Day 4 is another of my prompts. Making a limited gouache color palette of 5 colors and also like just not being able to mix those colors, so very like a graphic kind of idea. I love color palettes, and the idea of doing something like this had been on my mind for a while, so I figured, why not now? I used the Arteza tube gouache for this, and I think this was one of my first few experiences with them. Not the first, but close. And it was certainly my first like meaty experience with them, you know what I mean? Like an extended amount of time with more than a few colors. I really struggle to find a good palette when grabbing blindly, and I tried like 10 times before settling on a palette, and I unknowingly pulled 2 different opalescent colors. I painted a deer with the first color palette, and like, I can definitely see where those pearl colors would come in handy, but it was not for this painting. I just struggled so much with those pearly paints that I picked a new palette for the second photo. The Arteza gouache was good. It was definitely sketchbook quality though. They were pretty thin and transparent. It definitely required a lot of paint loaded up on the brush. I didn't love the colors, and in general they worked well enough. Like, I'm glad I have these on hand now. I will definitely continue to use them. But some of the colors, like those opalescent colors, required a lot more work than others, and it just wasn't making sense like with what I was doing. I was getting a little frustrated. But anyways, I did a deer, a little baby deer. I've had a lot of deer references saved up on Pinterest for a while now and have just been waiting for a good opportunity to like whip them out. In hindsight, I don't think that this palette was that time. Like, I picked the palette first and then the photo after, and yeah, I don't know why I picked the deer. On the second page, I used another Pinterest reference of a house on the water, but obviously I simplified it a lot. I picked the reference first this time and then a palette to go with it, and the palette the picture was like the perfect, it was really easy to come up with a palette for that, so that was nice. I like the second painting. I prefer that color palette a lot. It's a very basic color palette, but overall, I find this spread pretty disappointing. One of the things I wanted to do in this sketchbook was do good spreads. Not individual pages, but cool, cohesive spreads. I feel like that used to be my thing in my old sketchbooks, but for a while now, like years, I feel like my brain just doesn't work that way anymore. Especially now that I'm so used to working in a bigger sketchbook, it's hard not to think of each page as an individual and separate space. This spread is so clearly divided, like each page is literally its own painting with its own color palette, which is kind of a consequence of having to pick 2 different palettes instead of just using the first one. But even if I had stuck with the first one, I unthinkingly and stupidly sketched out a singular illustration on the first page, right? So like it still wouldn't have been a spread even if I had stuck with the first color palette the whole time. It might have been more cohesive, but it still wouldn't have been like, you know, a spread. And that's a theme that continues throughout pretty much this entire week, just not really being able to make them spreads. It's so frustrating, and it's definitely something I want to work on, because I really do prefer the look of that kind of sketchbook and the experience of that sketchbook, where things cross pages and take up space in a much more interesting way. So it's definitely something that I want to keep my mind on. This is one of Danny's prompts, mushrooms. This one had me really stumped. I did have lots of ideas, but they were either things I had kind of done before or recently, or were so outside my style that I didn't feel confident doing them without accidentally ripping someone else off, you know? So I had to think about this one for a long time. Eventually, I settled on searching for like an assortment of mushrooms, like in a basket. I think I searched for like mushroom basket or something, and I found this little market-like thing photo, and I thought it was really cute, and I liked the colors. So this spread is probably my least favorite, and it's partly because of my choices in the art itself, like my design choices and the way I drew things, but it's also because, again, I was using supplies that wouldn't have been my first choice. You guys know I've been loving those Pentel pens, and I got a somewhat similar set of felt tip pens from Arteza, and I do like them, but especially I love the black. I think it looks really cool. I've been doodling with it a lot, and I love the way it looked. It's very graphic, very doodly. So I thought I would do that for this spread. But as I started coloring, like I did the line work, and I liked it, and then I started coloring, and I realized, like, this looks like a kid's coloring book, and it looks bad. I didn't like the look or the effect it was having, but at that point it was like way too late to fix it. I was really kind of screwed on the first illustration. And then that frustration definitely carried over onto the other page, and really, like, I started at a really low point with the second one, and it didn't get much better. I had this idea for a cute little mushroom house, but all I had to color it with were a few pens and then colored pencils. And I don't know, I don't like it. I really don't like it. I love the idea, and I think the way the roof is colored is nice in its own way, but I just don't like it. I don't think I've ever been able to make the loose, sloppy, colored pencil look work for me. I've tried many times, it's never worked, and I should not have relied on that for this piece. And again, I've got 2 very separate pieces on each page, so like it's not a spread at all. Even if I had done some sort of color behind them both, like maybe like a rectangle of blue sky that went also behind the basket of mushrooms, just something to get rid of that white negative space and unify them more, that would have been really nice. Just overall, I was really frustrated with this spread. It's not awful, it's just like I didn't want there to be flops in the sketchbook, and I think it's a flop. Stars and planets. I immediately knew that I wanted to do something related to me because my name is Lilstarnerd. Honestly, I'm not actually a nerd about stars or space at all. I know very, very little about it, but I do find the aesthetics of it all very pretty. But my name kind of applies to the prompt, so I felt good about my decision. I went really fast on this day. Again, all month I've just felt busy, and so I've rushed at pretty much everything I've done, but especially on this day, like I was scribbling in those dark areas so fast. But despite that, I do think it turned out well. I don't think it looks too sloppy. I do like the idea of me holding on to this jumble of space and stars and planets and then spilling over and out and around me. I think it's cute. Is it super well executed? I honestly don't know. I genuinely don't know. This is actually one that I feel really confused about. Like, I really cannot understand my feelings about it at all. They're there, but I cannot identify them. Normally, I love drawing in this style, especially doing self-portraits. I really like doing it with pens like this, but I didn't really want to do that on this day. I think it was because I was already fed up with having to limit my supplies throughout this entire week. Like, I just wanted to be able to use markers, you know? I wish markers weren't so bad with bleed through. Like, this is not specific to this sketchbook. Like, I deal with this in my sketchbook all the time, where I will go through periods of avoiding markers just because I don't want to deal with the bleed through. But anyways, I didn't want to use liners, but I do like the way it looks now. Like, I like the way it turned out, but there's something about it that feels like, I don't know. I literally don't know. Maybe like something's like missing or like underwhelming. I don't know. I really, really don't know. I don't hate it though. Like, I don't dislike it, but I don't like it. I don't know. Maybe I feel weird because it's just one piece. Like, it's not a spread, but it's not cohesive. It's not too, I don't know. Yeah, I'm stumped. But that was day 6. The final day, oats. My last prompt that I put at the end because I was so excited to do it. I feel like I did disappoint myself a bit on this one because I was so excited to do the spread, but I don't think I went hard enough, but you know, oh well. So since moving to Florida, I see boats literally every day. And I never really cared about them before, especially as someone who gets really easily motion sick. But now that I live here, I have such a love for them. I love going to local docks and like seeing the boats go in and out and watching them bob up and down in the water and just, they're so fun. I love boats. From the big fancy yachts to the tiny little rowboats, I am just obsessed. I feel like with each passing year here, I turn into more and more of a little old like Florida lady. Like, first it was the birds, then flamingos and lighthouses and dolphins, now it's boats. And fishing? Look, I was a vegan for a long time, and even now I don't eat dairy or meat. I do eat fish, but I don't think I personally could go fishing. So tell me why I am so obsessed with the idea of it. I am so obsessed with the aesthetic of like men wading out in the shore, silently standing there all calm and peaceful to fish, or out on their tiny little boats with their tackle boxes. Tell me why my favorite thing is sitting at a waterside restaurant where I can watch the boats come in with their daily catch. I literally daydream about one day owning a boat and taking care of it and like hauling it around. Like, what? Who am I? A 55-year-old man? What's going on? So I love boats. I love the aesthetic of them. I love the look of them. I love the very classic Florida aesthetic, I think. And colorful sailboats and old men holding fish just remind me of that so much. So I wanted to kind of capture that vibe in this spread. The main focus of the spread is this adorable photo of a young person holding their catch, and I loved the colors, the pop of orange in the gloves. And then around them are just some boats. I had pretty high expectations for this spread. I don't think I executed it well. I think I honestly thought boats would be easier to draw, but they are very complicated. Lots of little lines, lots of detail. I definitely want to keep trying at them. I really want to do it justice, but for this spread, where I drew the boats so tiny and I decided I was going to use liners to do them, I just really couldn't get in there to get the amount of detail I think boats require. This is another of my favorite spreads. It probably definitely helps that I used markers for this one, But I love the colors. I tried to stick to a somewhat limited and cohesive color palette by picking all my colors beforehand. I used a neon colored pencil to kind of tie the 2 pages together and get rid of all the negative space, which I think somewhat worked. I think the spread is the most successful at being a spread. These 2 pages feel the most unified out of all the others, except for maybe the egg pages. Just a very cute spread. I had a lot of fun with it, and it was nice to end on a high note. It is November 19th and the sketchbook is complete. This was really fun. I did enjoy this a lot. It was really nice to have every day, like, allotted time to draw. Some of them were kind of bad. Some of them were okay. I really like this spread. This is probably my favorite. I do like this one. I was really excited for this prompt. Don't like how it came out. I don't like the mushroom spread. I was really excited for it. I had like fun ideas. I don't like what I did. I was also trying to use like mediums that weren't gonna bleed through a lot, and that limited me, and so I wasn't using like my favorite supplies, and that kind of messed things up. There's this spread. My face is so funky. It's fine. I like the concept. And today's, which I actually really like. I think the composition is a little lame. Like, I didn't fill up as much space as I wanted, but I really, really enjoyed it. I've been wanting to draw boats for a while, so I had a good time. But yeah, she's done. I kind of thought that this would be a bit more of a challenge than it was. I wasn't thinking about the fact that like this is a really small sketchbook. So filling the spreads, although, okay, another issue I had, not really an issue, but like retroactively I don't like, is I did each page kind of individually, and I really wanted to work on spreads. I don't like that everything is really separate from each other. This one's like probably the best of them in terms of being a spread. I just feel like I used to do like really cool spreads in my sketchbook, and lately, like the past like year or two, I haven't. So I wanted to work on that, didn't do it. Oh well. But yeah, overall I had a great time. Again, thank you to Danny for making me the sketchbook. That is so sweet of you. I love it and I will treasure it always. Yeah, that was a fun little challenge, a fun little exercise. I feel really good about it. Like I feel kind of refreshed and rejuvenated. I'm excited to go back into my own personal sketchbook and work in there. I have not had time for my sketchbook lately, and I've also been in a bit of a slump just because of the fact that I haven't had time for art, and this I feel like really rejuvenated me and got me excited again, so that's awesome. That's the video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, like, comment, subscribe, the whole shebang. Let me know if there are any other challenges that you'd like to see me do. I've been really enjoying doing challenges. It's fun to step out of my comfort zone. I'm gonna go water your plants, stay cozy and toasty if it's cold where you are, and go do some art.